begin where the Taoiseach ended that last contribution. Firstly, I welcome what I read in this morning's media, now confirmed for the House by the Taoiseach, of the establishment of a new infrastructural fund of €200 million to bring unserviced sites for housing into use for housing. But I'd like to just get some clarity about that particular fund. Firstly, is this new money, if the Taoiseach would answer these questions in series, is the money to be accounted for on or off balance sheet? The Taoiseach will recall last year the allocation of €400 million from the sale of BGE, which was to be used to provide social housing. And the difficulty was, within the Stability and Growth Pact and the fiscal parameters, to be able to provide that money, to spend that money without breaching the fiscal rules. Can I ask where stands that €400 million? Is that to be expended, or is it still parked and not being brought into use?
Deputy Howlin, Taoiseach.
The decision taken this morning, Deputy Howlin, was to approve a €200 million local infrastructure development fund, and that would require an estimated €70 million additional in 2017, €100 million in 2018, and €30 million in 2019, and that's in respect of the €200 million. And that will be funded by €150 million from the Exchequer, followed by matched by a €50 million local authority contribution towards that. So that is, it's Exchequer money. It's on balance sheet, and it's designed because of the obvious difficulty in a number of locations around the country, particularly, I might say, in the Dublin area, where there is serious potential for building sizable numbers of houses, but the sites are inaccessible because of the requirement for road openings or for bridges or whatever else. So this is a fund that's designed to allow local authorities to compete, to draw money, to open up those sites so that they can then build houses and deal with the supply issue, which, as you know, has been the real restriction here on people getting their houses. I'll have to come back to you in respect of the expenditure of the €400 million that you mentioned, which was allocated last year.
Deputy Howlin.
Just so I'll understand it, this money will not be expended till next year. Is that what you're telling us now? And first question. And secondly, when it is drawn down, it has to be matched by some percentage of local government's own money. What is that percentage again, and where are they to get that money? And is it only local authorities with the capacity to find matching funding will be allowed to draw down that money? And my final question is, taken together over the last week, we've seen announcements of an additional €500 million for health, €200 million for housing, €40 million for policing, and an undisclosed sum yet to be announced in the Department of Education when we see the published estimates, which we haven't seen yet, although they're to be debated apparently tomorrow. Can I ask how all of that additional expenditure impacts on the expenditure benchmark, and has a new expenditure benchmark been agreed with Brussels, and if so, what is that benchmark?
Taoiseach.
This week will be taken up with estimates which will be brought through by the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform, your successor. As you know, back in April, the government did inform the Commission of some adjustments to the estimates as originally drafted. This is on a 75-25% basis. The local authorities will have access to finance borrowing capacity from the Housing Finance Agency. The work will commence this year, and drawdown of that money will be next year. As I said, 17 million in 2017, 100 million in 2018, and 30 million in 2019. Well, the work will be able to commence this year. Obviously, payment will be drawn down then for 2017. In a situation here where we've now identified quite a number of sites, particularly in the Greater Dublin area, where it's inaccessible. It would not be. It's not within the capacity of local authorities to open up these sites to allow for building of sizable numbers of houses. And for that reason, government want to step in here with a competitive fund, so that local authorities will have to demonstrate that if they're looking for 5 million to open up site X, that it's going to give a return in housing that's going to reduce the demand and therefore increase the supply.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
So
until next year.
The drawdown won't be until next year, but work will commence this year.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
In fact, the Minister is very anxious to expedite this process so that work can start as soon as possible.